Podcasting from across time and space, GameCritics.com presents The Doctor Who Show. My name is Tim Spaeth. I am normally the host of the GameCritics.com podcast, but tonight it's all about Time Lords and TARDISes. And joining me, an international assembly of Doctor Who enthusiasts. Let's introduce them now. First up, a familiar voice if you listen to the GameCritics.com podcast, my colleague, my co-host, my friend, Brad Gallaway. Hello, Brad.
Hey, Tim. Really excited to be here. Really glad to be with our special guests. And before we move ahead, I just wanted to give a quick shout-out to my good friend Strident from Twitter, who I really wish could have been with us tonight. Unfortunately, couldn't make it, but he would have been a fine addition. However, tonight's show is going to rock.
It absolutely is. And Brad, if I may say, because I've been holding on to this joke for about a month, tonight may I call you Brad Gallifrey?
I've been waiting for that. I was wondering. And so, in honor of that, yes, you may.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Quite welcome, sir.
Also tonight on our panel, a very special guest. We're so thrilled to welcome Kimberly Unger. She is the CEO of Bushigo and a futurist in training. Kim, welcome to the show.
Why, thank you.
Tell us about being a futurist in training.
Well,
not to put you on the spot.
Not to put me on the spot, but the thing that always gets me about, I think about this question actually. The thing that always, there's the great question, where are the flying cars? Most people at some point in the past who have been described as futurists almost inevitably have the coolest visions of the future. And they just never pan out. So that's what I hope to be someday, is to have a cool enough vision of the future that everybody will be looking for their flying cars.
It's the Back to the Future Part 2 syndrome, really.
Exactly.
We're not going to make it to Back to the Future 2, and I personally blame all the futurists. But if you can change that perception, I fully support it. So, Kimberly, thank you so much for being here. Finally, the man who is putting the international in our international assembly, our old friend Sinan Kuba, the host of the Big Red Potion podcast, also a man about town. Sinan, you're up late tonight, aren't you?
Yes, but I'm here on time, which makes me personally very, very happy, and I'm sober, which is an immense improvement on last time as well.
Are you up very late or very early?
I'm up very early, actually. I just got up an hour ago, which probably explains why I'm going to find the Brad Gallifrey joke really funny for the next hour.
Well, Sinan, last time you were on the Game Critics show, you were, I don't remember the exact story. It was something about a bus and the police, and I think you went to prison for a brief period.
It was messy.
So I'm glad that it's much less stress-free for you tonight.
Thank you.
Or no, it would be much more stress-free for you tonight. Anyway, let me move on. Thank you all for being here. The idea for this podcast was born on Twitter, which of course is not an ideal venue for a lengthy discussion of any depth. So Brad proposed a podcast, and Kimberly and Sinan, you were kind enough to sign on. So here we are. What I think we should do before we run down the topics is just share with everyone our personal experiences with Doctor Who, just to kind of set the expectations as to what the scope of the conversation will be. So, Kimberly, if you don't mind, we'll start with you and tell us, how did you get into Doctor Who? How far back do you go? What seasons have you watched? Are you reading the novels? Are you writing fan fiction? How deep does your fandom go?
Well, first of all, I will confess there was a point in time where I was writing fan fiction, but that is long past us now, and it's all been burned. So, for the betterment of mankind, I got into Doctor Who back in college, because college is when you get into all the cool stuff anyway, really.
Certainly.
And I started with, Brad, you're up here in Northern California, I think. So you're probably familiar with the never-ending PBS fundraisers that they run with Doctor Who as their media.
I'm in Seattle
choice.
now, but I do remember I was living in California for a while, so I know exactly what you're talking about. PBS would have those on the weekends, like 48 hours straight of something from the UK. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So that's where I first got into it, and it was John Pertwee was the first set that I ran across, and it was one of those things where they run like half an episode, and these were the old format episodes. So they were 2 hours long, and then chopped up into. I presume they were chopped up into chunks in the UK and delivered that way. And then here they would air them like in the full 2 hours. And then every hour or so they'd stop and they'd spend a half an hour showing you pictures of puppies and TARDIS t-shirts and asking you to support your local PBS station. So it was fabulously frustrating, but still very entertaining at the same time.
Is there any way at all I can convince you to give us just maybe 2 sentences about your fan fiction? I'm dying to know. At least tell us which Doctor the fan fiction was about.
Oh, it would be John Pertwee, and it involved time traveling golf.
I couldn't be more intrigued if I tried.
And you burnt it? You didn't burn it. You didn't really burn it, did you? You still have it.
You know what? I doubt I still have it. When you move back home with your parents because you can't get employed after you have a degree, and you just have boxes and boxes of stuff. It was in one of those boxes of stuff, and it has since. It's either calcified somewhere in a basement, or it's been used as tinder for the fireplace. So. Saying it's been burned is safer.
So, have you been watching consistently since like the John Pertwee era? Have you come all the way through Doctors? Would that be Doctor like 3 through 11, or did you take a break somewhere in there?
I'm actually just that sort of obsessive. When I figured out that there were multiple Doctors, and I didn't actually figure that out because this was before the internet. I didn't actually figure that out until they aired John Pertwee's Regeneration. Once I figured out that was the case, I went back and started with number 1. Started with Hartnell,
wow,
with the original Doctor, and started hunting them up to go all the way through. So I have actually seen. I think there's a few of the second Doctor I'm missing. And then right about number 5 is when I dropped out, simply because I couldn't get my hands on it anymore. I moved out of the Bay Area, and you no longer had that glorious PBS access, or at least I didn't have the leisure to sit through 48 hours of unadulterated Doctor Who.
I understand.
So I'm missing most of the 5th Doctor and the 6th Doctor. I think I saw a couple of Sylvester McCoy, and not only did I catch, but I videotaped the American Travesty. That was the Doctor Who movie that aired here. And we were all so psyched because it was supposed to have Spielberg behind it, and it was going to be this awesome thing. And then it just didn't even make any sense to a Doctor Who fan.
No.
So.
No.
And then they resurrected it, and it's been awesome.
It has indeed. So I think it's safe to say that you're pretty hardcore. You're pretty hardcore. You have set the bar pretty high for Brad and Sinan. So let me...
I don't have the scarf. I don't have a thing for celery.
But you do have the sonic screwdriver, though.
You know what? I did. It was stolen. I had
what?
one, but it was stolen.
Oh,
it was stolen. I'm going down to Comic-Con this summer to acquire a new one. So
Very sorry to hear that.
Excellent. So, Brad, can you match Kimberly's fandom?
No, not at all. But I'm actually glad you came to me next because I think I'll be a good counterpoint to Kimberly. I'm probably the newest, greenest newbie in this bunch. I've only been into, quote unquote, into Doctor Who since last year, so I'm brand new. I got to say, growing up, I did see the PBS marathons that Kimberly referenced. I did used to live in California, and they would have just like, weekend full of stuff from the UK. I didn't really ever watch it, though, because when I watched it, it was always some dude in a scarf sitting around talking, and like nothing was going on. And it was just really boring, and I had no clue what this was supposed to be. So I would just like skip it. And I eventually kind of got onto Red Dwarf thanks to PBS, but Doctor Who never clicked with me. And as I got older, I started going to comic conventions. I was really, really deep into comics for a long time. Still am, but not as crazy as I used to be. But when I would go to these conventions, the only people who were ever talking about Doctor Who were like the uber nerds. I mean, I was a nerd for sure, but like I'm talking about the uber super nerds, like the dudes with the greasy hair who only talked in like, monotone voices, wore the ugly sweaters, and came with their moms. Like those were the only guys who ever knew what Doctor Who was. And I was like, why in God's name would I want to be part of that? Like I wouldn't. There's nothing cool about that. So I never got into Doctor Who at all. I had no desire to. And then a couple years ago, I was up late. I was kind of at a bad point in my life, transitioning between some major events. And I was just like feeling lost and flipping channels and had nothing to do. And I saw one episode from Series 3, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't even know what it was. I just watched, and there was a monster on screen, and there was a chick running away screaming, and I'm like, well, okay, this looks okay. And I watched it, and I was like, I wonder if this is that Doctor Who that everybody's talking about. It might be. I don't know. And I just forgot about it. Didn't see anything, didn't touch it until I got into Twitter full time. And then once I started tweeting with people, I started seeing that a lot of people I really liked and really got along well with were saying a lot of really good things about the new reboot. So I thought, well, these are people I respect. They're very sharp. They're funny. I like them. I want to be like them. So maybe I should watch Doctor Who also. So I talked the wife into watching it with me. We had Netflix, and the whole, series 1 through 4 was on Netflix, the new reboot series, and we thought, well, let's just give it a try. We'll just start and we'll see if we like it. Who knows? And if we don't like it, we'll just stop and watch something else. And we ended up watching seasons 1 through 4 within the span of 6 months. We went to watch Torchwood, the spin-off series. We watched the entire series of that within a couple months. And since then, it's like spurred us into watching like a million other UK series. So even though I am probably the newest, I think we've gone into it whole hog since then.
And I think I saw you mention on Twitter the other day you were thinking about going back and watching a classic Doctor Who serial. Did you get an opportunity to do that?
I did. And in fact, it was last night. I kind of had a few things come up, but I put some time aside and I sat down to watch. It's not Game of Death because Bruce Lee wasn't in it. It was City of Death. No, City of the Dead with Tom Baker. Mm-hmm. And I watched part of it, and I got to say, it was bizarrely fascinating to watch, to kind of compare and contrast with the way the new series is. And I don't really have any feelings on it. I think I was just kind of in shock, just kind of watching the whole thing because it was so different. I think I actually really want to go back and watch it again or watch some more. But it was kind of mind blowing, actually.
Interesting. We'll come back to that because I a couple follow-up questions I want to go there. But let's go over to Sinan. Sinan, what is in your Doctor Who wheelhouse?
In my Doctor Who wheelhouse, I think, funnily enough, out of the three of us, I'm the one who's probably watched the least. In that I've watched the 5 series of the reboot, but no Torchwood, no Sarah Jane Adventures, nothing like that. But I do have probably the most obscure first memory of Doctor Who, which was from something like 1992, and it's a comic relief, which is a sort of charity event here in the UK, which is on like a sort of a telethon, and they have various sort of special shows, and one of them was a special sort of Doctor Who parody, which starred Rowan Atkinson of Mr. Bean fame as Doctor Who, and it was surreal. And I think it ended with him being turned into a woman. So you had Joanna Lumley from Absolutely Fabulous playing the Doctor, and ending up in a relationship with the Master, which was probably the kind of fan fiction that Kimberly might have seen on the internet.
That's hot. That's really hot.
But for me personally, I was kind of like Brad. I associated Doctor Who with the kind of greasy-haired, nerdy side of people, and it wasn't something I was particularly interested in. And then when I started going out with my girlfriend, who I'm still with, so this is about 7 years ago. This is roughly when the reboot started. She wasn't really into Doctor Who, but her housemates were, and she's very much one of these people who will latch on to anything that's on television. Just, if what's on, fine, I'll watch it. Then I'll watch the next 10 episodes of it as well. And she got into it, and inevitably that means I got into it kind of very reluctantly, because I've watched the first episode of the first series and thought, okay, mannequins, this is really silly. But I have to say I've loved it since, and whilst I may not be so hardcore in terms of peripheral stuff and going back to the old series, whenever a new episode is on, it's a must-watch thing for me.
Fabulous. I'm probably closest to boy, oh boy. When I probably Sinan or Brad, I fall somewhere in between the two of you. When I was a kid, I was a very hardcore Star Trek guy, and anything that wasn't Star Trek, I kind of shunned as being not Star Trek. I had a very good friend who tried to turn me on to Doctor Who and would accidentally turn on some Sylvester McCoy episodes. I don't know, this is probably 7th or 8th grade. And it was just, at the time, for me, unwatchable, because it was just this old grumpy guy ordering around this young girl named Ace. And I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't want to understand what was going on. I just wanted Picard and Riker and Captain Kirk. Why weren't they in Doctor Who? And so that was, it was not until 2005 when I started reading stories about the Doctor Who coming back, and every single thing, every little tiny announcement, like, here's the new logo, and that would spawn 12 pages of forum posts about the new logo, and here's the new TARDIS, and here's the new sonic screwdriver, and it was just inundated, and I was fascinated by how could people be interested in this? It's Doctor Who. I don't get it. But I ended up, I will admit, to torrenting the entire first season, and I just sat down and started watching it. And the reason I kept watching is because I knew Christopher Eccleston. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
That's right.
Uh-huh.
I knew he was leaving. And I knew he was going to regenerate, and I was fascinated behind the idea of regeneration and what would that look like and what would that be. So I kept watching, and as I watched, just found myself just entranced with the concept and excited, and I became very attached to Eccleston. And then when I knew he was leaving. When he actually left, I was very sad by that, and at that point I knew I was hooked. So. Yeah, I've watched all the modern shows, and I have gone back and watched some of the old sort of Doctor team-up episodes where, like, the first Doctor, the second Doctor, the third Doctor would get together and have an adventure. I've watched those just to get a taste of as many older Doctors as possible. But clearly, I think tonight our focus will be on the modern series, the Russell Davies, Stephen Moffat era, Eccleston, Tennant, Smith. We're going to talk about these Doctors and their companions, the stories we loved, the stories we didn't love so much. Certainly we acknowledge the older Doctor Who, and please, Kimberly, Brad, please feel free to jump in with what you've seen. We acknowledge there are audiobooks and novels, but you really don't want to hear us talking about any of that. So, Sinan, I want to go back to you before we get into Eccleston versus Tennant versus Smith. I want to go back to you and ask you, because and forgive the North American centricity of this question, but it is astounding to me that there is a nation on this planet where Doctor Who has been not just embraced, but fully and completely embraced by the popular culture. I mean, in the States, and Brad and Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, outside of nerd circles, Doctor Who is barely a blip on the radar. But in England, the country that birthed Doctor Who, hugely popular. Tell me what that's like. It sounds like utopia to me.
I think it's one of those things where if you're on the other side of the hill, maybe it's not quite as beautiful as it may seem. I don't know. I mean, what I do love about Doctor Who is that it is so British, and you know, and that extends to how budget it is, and you know, like you're talking about the regeneration, and I sort of think, well, you know, I'm a big fan of 24, for example, and I'm always amazed by how much money goes into that show. And the great thing about being a Brit watching Doctor Who is sort of thinking, oh yeah, so you're filming in Cardiff again, or you're filming in that same warehouse in London again. I've been there. And, you know, it's whilst it's such a phenomenon, it's such a sort of quaintly British small thing, but at the same time we go crazy about quaintly British small things here. You know, for example, Red Dwarf was another show which we go a bit nuts about, and again that was a show that started on a budget. So, you know, for example, when in the end of season 4, when David Tennant was leaving, you couldn't watch Christmas television here in the UK without seeing David Tennant appear on something. You know, he was on quiz shows, he was on guest shows, he was on all kinds of things. And you know, I think someone actually wrote an article tallying how many appearances he made across the Christmas period here in the UK. There's something like 126, which is, you know, considering we only have like 5 terrestrial channels here, that's ridiculous.
Wow.
So, you know, it's fine, but at the same time, you know, I'm proud of it. At the same time, I'm kind of a little bit embarrassed by it because it's so strange and ridiculous, and you know, compared to kind of this big American things, which really feel much more, I don't know, professional in some cases. It feels a little bit quaint and silly, but at the same time, I like it for its quaintness and its silliness.
My understanding is that it airs kind of at an earlier hour, that it is embraced. Is it embraced equally by children and adults? I mean, is it a show for the whole family? Who is it targeted to over there?
I'm really glad you asked that, because actually Strident, who Brad mentioned earlier, he told me to mention this because it is very family orientated over here. It's 7 p.m. on BBC One usually, or sometimes even a bit earlier, sometimes 6 o'clock actually. So, you know, very prime time. That'll be on a Saturday. Sorry, so yeah, prime time, but sort of family prime time. And you know, we have things like, you know, sticker books and annuals here, and the comics. And obviously, there's the Sarah Jane Adventures, which is the children's show, the spin-off. At the same time, because it's been such a phenomenon in its recent incarnation, we got the Torchwood series, which is the most surreal thing. And I have to admit, I don't know anything about Torchwood. I watched one episode. I'm assured it's good, but I watched the first episode and I thought, oh god, this is like After Hours Doctor Who. This is Doctor Who Blue. I can't watch this. Just too silly, too sexed up. Which I guess it kind of extends into how I sort of see Doctor Who. Like I said, I really kind of appreciate it for its silly family factor. I think once it gets a bit too serious for me, that's when it all gets a bit less enjoyable.
And then, if I understand correctly, after an episode of Doctor Who ends, then there is something called Doctor Who Confidential.
Oh,
which is kind of like
I'm forced to watch Doctor Who Confidential by my girlfriend every single time.
So we don't have this in the United States. We don't have like, here's a making of the episode you just watched. That concept doesn't exist over here. But why are you forced to watch it? What is it that repulses you?
Well, I think anything you watch the making of just after you've watched it makes you lose kind of any appreciation you had immediately. Like, why do I have, you know, I don't know, why am I immediately revisiting something I've just watched? But my girlfriend has to watch every single bit of Doctor Who that's on television now. That's the way it is. So yeah, well, on BBC One, which is the main terrestrial channel, we have Doctor Who, and then on BBC Three, which is sort of like a satellite channel, a cable channel, you have Doctor Who Confidential. It's a 15 minutes thing afterwards. And this is a thing that's very prevalent in the UK. You have these side shows on satellite channels after the main show. So, for example, Pop Idol, you'll have like Pop Idol Extra or something. Like the American Idol equivalent over here. I think it's just because over here we're saps. We just don't get up and don't leave the television, so people know how to make us watch more and more stuff.
Kimberly and Brad, listening to the number of appearances that David Tennant made leading up to his exit from the show, if you polled 1,000 people, how many of them in the United States would have any idea who David Tennant is?
Oh God, like one?
Maybe one, right?
The person asking the question.
I don't know. There are a lot of people who have heard of Doctor Who. I find, who the reference sets off the voices in their head, right? They've heard it, they've run across it, they've seen a blip on TV, or they've run across it on BBC America, or they know a guy who knows a guy. But I think if you were to say, do you know Doctor Who? They would know. But if you were to say David Tennant, they'd be like, what? So I think it would really depend on whether you're asking about the actor or the show.
And plus, it depends where you'd be. I mean, if you went to Comic-Con or something, okay, yeah, you'd have a way better percentage. But if you're downtown in some urban business district, then nobody, So in general, though, I think nobody or one.
It's funny because I was talking, Brad, obviously you watched the show with your wife. I was talking about the idea for this podcast with my wife over dinner, and my wife tolerates my nerd habits as long as I don't attempt to include her. And I said, just as a test, I asked her, honey, tell me everything you know about Doctor Who. And she said, I think it's for nerds. I said, okay, great. What else? She said, that's it. That's all I know. And I said, you realize you've been in the same room as me when the show has been on. You didn't look up once and maybe saw a blue box or a guy with amazing hair. I mean, what? No, nothing? No, nothing. So, yeah, it's just remarkable to me that it is so wildly popular in England and still sort of way, way under the radar here in the States. But Brad and Kimberly, how did you watch it? I mean, I mentioned I torrented all the shows. How did you guys? Brad, you did Netflix, maybe?
Yeah, we did Netflix. I mean, we went to see how much was there, whether I was going to have to track down an actual DVD or what. But they had, season 1 through 4 of the new series. So we just, made a bowl of popcorn and sat down and push play, easy as that. So in that respect, I'm really grateful that Netflix has the wide range of shows that it does. I mean, not to plug Netflix because they don't really, financially support us or anything. But, yeah, Netflix was great for that. I went through a ton of stuff.
They've got it on instant watch too. So if you have a 360 or a PS3 or something, then you can the Doctor Who stuff is coming on to their instant watch feature, which is doubly addictive, I'm afraid. I actually, when I heard the buzz that it was starting, I actually watched it from episode 1 on BBC America when they started airing them. And then when I heard about Torchwood, I paid some guy in Florida to get access to the BBC One feed and send me a DVD. So.
I've done that with old Transformer episodes, honestly, so that sounds very familiar to me. But paying a guy who's over in this other state who's going to make you a dub, I've done that.
Yep. Somebody who has better access for now.
Exactly.
Until I get my satellite built.
Outstanding. Any other sort of U.S. versus U.K. thoughts before we move on to the big debate where we start arguing furiously?
Well, I was just wondering in terms of how well does the sort of family orientated nature come across over there, because it is a big side of it over here.
I would say, I mean, my kids watch it with us, and it's perfectly accessible to a younger age range, but I don't find science fiction live action in general to be something that people perceive as for kids.
Right.
It's sort of a cultural difference. If it's science fiction, it's for teenagers and older. I mean, you can do stuff like Ben 10 and the cartoon stuff for the kids, but if you're looking at live action stuff, most of the adults that I know don't think that it's something that kids can even access until they're 11, 12. Heading into the tween age. So
Totally. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I mean, I don't see that there's a lot of sci-fi out there aimed at younger kids, and I think that kids who are into sci-fi at those younger ages are the ones who end up being ostracized and eating lunch by themselves at school usually. But my oldest son, is 9, and I just introduced him to Doctor Who for the first time a couple months ago. And I wasn't sure what he was going to make of it, but he actually really liked it a lot. In general, I don't think that anybody I know watches Doctor Who with their kids. I think I'm the only one except for maybe you guys here on the podcast. But he really liked it a lot, except for it was actually a little scary for him at some points. He's not a real fraidy cat, but we don't really expose him to horror or anything that's really on the scarier side. And when we watched a few of the episodes that had some of the the juicier monsters and some a higher body count, he actually got a little bit frightened. But he actually really did like the Doctor a lot, and he has put in a request to watch more. So I think that's a pretty positive sign.
Very cool.
That's great. My son is going to be 2 in April, and he is fond of the opening credits.
There you go.
So it's baby steps, but yeah, he likes watching the names flash on the screen and flying through the wormhole, or I'm sorry, the time vortex. I'm sorry. I'm going to get kicked off the internet for that slip up.
5 listeners.
I was going to say, yeah.
Man, good thing I can edit that out. Fantastic. Well, should we brave the waters of who's your favorite Doctor?
Let's.
Should we do it? 9
We're all
versus.
reasonable people here.
Why don't here's what I'm going to force each of you to do. I will say your name, and all I would like you to do is give us your favorite Doctor. Don't explain why yet. Just give us a number. Is it 9? Is it 10? Is it 11? Or Eccleston, Tennant, Smith, and then let's see what we come up with. So, Kimberly, I will give you the first opportunity.
If I have to pick a favorite, it's going to be Tennant, but it's really tight. Honestly.
Sinan.
Eccleston.
Brad.
Smith.
Wow.
You're just being contrarian, we can tell.
To this moment, I have not made my decision, but I am going to say Tennant. So we
No
win.
surprise.
Tennant
No
wins.
surprise.
Tennant wins.
Yeah, I figured.
Tennant is the best. It's 2 versus 1 versus 1. Let's start with Eccleston. Sinan, what is your argument for Mr. Eccleston?
What's my argument for Mr. Eccleston? Well, okay, let's go back to that first episode then with the mannequins, which I kind of hated the first time because, like I said, I didn't really understand Doctor Who, and I just thought this is stupid. There are mannequins. Why are there mannequins killing people? I just couldn't get my head around the very basic concept of mannequins killing people. But then I returned to it, and watching that episode again, I think it encapsulates him brilliantly, because what I love about Eccleston's portrayal of Doctor Who is it oscillates wildly from over enthusiastic, energetic, excessively kind of bubbly and bright, to very, very dark and twisted and sinister and evil. And I feel like you see a lot of that in David Tennant's portrayal, but it maybe because it's the order that it was in, I feel like Tennant's never really got out the shadow of Eccleston's portrayal of Doctor Who that way. And I think as well, I'm going to get my digs and Tennant. No, I'll leave my digs for Tennant later. But I think there are some things about David Tennant's portrayal which are weaker, which we can get into later. But I just think it made him genuinely engrossing to watch in the first season. You never quite knew what he was going to do. You couldn't really get a handle on what his take was on the situation, and in that I think it's the episode on the Space Channel, the television channel, where he leaves the kid to go back to his mum with the device back in his head, and it's just it's such a sinister, dark thing to do, and yet at the same time it came across very funny, and I think that comes a lot in the way Eccleston portrays the Doctor. He's very good at being kind of offhand with the dark things that he does, and I very much appreciate that, and I think, and especially in the last two episodes, he was brilliant alongside, and Billy Piper as well was a fantastic. Those last two episodes in the first season are two of my favorites.
I like how you worked the catchphrase in there. Fantastic.
Yes, you can't avoid saying that word when you talk about Eccleston. And I said sorry as well with David Tennant.
We'll talk about. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We'll talk about that. We'll get there. My two favorite Eccleston scenes. The first is in the episode Dalek, when he sees the Dalek, and he completely freaks out, and he just flips. And you haven't really seen him like that to that point. And there is a terror there. And to see someone who has been so confident to that point flip out to that degree, it really just there's a gravitas there that I don't feel like Tennant or Smith could have brought, and I think part of that is probably Eccleston's age. I think to attain that level of gravitas, you need some years under your belt. You need some lines on your face, and that right there was something that really endeared me to him. My other favorite Eccleston scene is his last scene. When he is about to regenerate with Rose. And it really just kind of sums up for me their relationship. There is a very much the way that he talks her through what's about to happen is very much, to me, like a parent at the doctor with their child who's about to get a shot. And the child says, "Is this going to hurt?" And as a parent, you say, yes, it is going to hurt. But that's exactly how he says, yes, I am going to regenerate. You're not going to see me again. But then he kind of spins it in a way that I think makes her feel better. He goes into you were fantastic, and so was I. And there's that smirk, and then he regenerates. And it's that to me is just a wonderful moment, and when I think of him, I think of that scene. Kimberly, you had mentioned you were vacillating between Tennant and, was it Eccleston?
It was Eccleston primarily. Tennant and Eccleston are my two favorite. I'm still sussing out Smith. I think he's finally clicked with the character after the first season. But Eccleston was just the moment you mentioned with the Daleks went so far beyond that particular episode, because there's this huge giant gap in the history of the show between Sylvester McCoy and when Eccleston takes over. And somewhere in there, or this time traveling show, it could have happened, quote, anytime. There's been this time war, and it's been mentioned before, but that moment is just like a sledgehammer to the mythos. When you suddenly realize that whatever has gone on that we have missed is massive, that it could freak him out this badly seeing a Dalek. Because previously, while the Daleks were, horrible and frightening and inexorable, we had stairs. And, and there was always just sort of this, okay, yes, it's the Daleks, we know how to handle Daleks type attitude with the old Doctor. So that was, so Eccleston had these really brilliant moments and these really dark moments peppered in there, but Tennant was meaner. And they tried to do that, and again, I'm geeking out here a little bit. They tried to do that with the Nutso Doctor back in the original series, but it never came off very well. And Tennant's character has this mean, petty streak in him that we haven't seen before, and that you don't normally see in a heroic character. And most of the time, it's tempered by the companions, which made it. Which first of all gave the companions a reason for being there other than plot devices and eye candy, but it and his exit, while perhaps a bit protracted, I think was one of the nobler ones out there in that we actually get the impression of this character. Nobody ever thinks that the Doctor might not want to regenerate. Right. I mean, you always think about the idea that, look, you're escaping death. Who's not going to want to do that? But after 900 years and developing an affection for oneself, I think that's the first time they've looked at that. And I think Tennant carried it off very well. And then, of course, comparing him to Barty Crouch in Harry Potter, or Crouch Jr. in the Harry Potter movies, which was just it's a terrifying comparison. Like, oh my God, Doctor Who is insane. I think they. I mean, both actors brought their A game, and I think both actors are supremely talented. But I think that Tennant's character was a little. I don't want to say subtle. He was a little bit classier. He was a little bit, when Eccleston flipped and you saw the sort of the meaner side of the Doctor with him, it was very brutish, if you will. It was a much more primal thing versus what you saw with Tennant, which was much more. It's almost like you got a glimpse of the Master occasionally with the way he played it. So, but like I said, it's really tight.
Because I feel a tiny bit like I should defend Eccleston. Because I'm the same. I'm very much split between Tennant and Eccleston, and I actually like him. I still feel like I'm sussing out Matt Smith. I'm not made my mind up yet at all. But the thing is with Tennant, and it's strange because he's he's an actor with a Shakespearean background. And unless that maybe that does explain it. The thing that makes me just put him slightly behind Eccleston is that he's got a lot of memes. There's a lot of things that repeat with him. So, not just the sorry, I'm so sorry thing, which, someone linked me to a video on Twitter just before the podcast of David Tennant saying sorry 120 times across seasons 2 to 4, which you have to watch it. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
there's actually one. There's one point when where Captain Jack says, I think you're supposed to say sorry now. And then David's a good, oh, sorry. It was kind of summed up the whole video. But it's things like, when he's angry, he grits his teeth in this very definite way. It's always the same face. When his smile is so always the kind of same smile. It always feels over the, just, I don't know. It's difficult to put into words. No, just in terms of, it always feels like he's going into the same stereotype with when he's trying to be angry or over the top or whatever, and I found Eccleston more unpredictable in that sense, and I don't know, maybe it's because Tennant was there for 3 seasons and you get used to a character a bit more and an actor a bit more, but I got a bit tired of the I'm sorry, I'm so sorry by season 4, I've got to say.
Brad, what about you? I know that you were very much pro Eccleston, and I recall you moving into the Tennant era with a great deal of displeasure. What are your thoughts?
Well, first off, I do want to echo everything that everybody has said about Eccleston so far. I think he did a tremendous job. I was deeply, deeply, deeply disappointed that he only lasted 1 season. I mean, I loved his portrayal of the Doctor. It was not only the first portrayal, but in some ways I kind of regret that it was the first, because I think he did such a great job of of like has been mentioned, like, you know, you never knew whether he was going to be loopy or whether he's going to be serious or whether he's going to be really dark and mad. And you know, his range of the character was much more varied. I mean, when I was watching him, I really did feel like I could believe this guy was 900 years old. Like he looked to me like he had been through some things, like he had witnessed things, and I could buy him as the Doctor. I really did. I love Eccleston, and it was very close for me between Eccleston and Smith. As far as Tennant goes, Tennant is a Muppet. He's a Muppet with better hair. He gave one-note performances all the way up until the end of season 4, at which point I feel like he started to do a good job, and then he was off the show. I really did not care for Tennant at all. I watched the show just because I kind of knew he was leaving, so I wanted to hang in there until he was gone. And I liked his companions the best. I know we're going to hold off on that discussion until the next question, but I liked his companions. They were really good, and they often saved the show for me in a lot of ways. I did not like Tennant at all. I just fail all the way from start to finish for me. So the reason I picked Smith was because I really like the fact that he's kind of laissez-faire about things, and I do agree he didn't really get his take on the Doctor locked in until maybe the end of season 1. But he's so like goofy and alien looking, and he's got this kind of akimbo way of walking, and he does carry some of the Eccleston tendencies of you never quite know which way he's going to go. I mean, I think in general he's much lighter than Eccleston. He doesn't have the same depth of darkness that Eccleston did, which I really liked, but he's got a little bit. We saw a little bit at the end, which I really liked, and I just like his manner. He feels to me as though he is alien at times, and I think that was one thing that was really lacking in David Tennant for me. I never ever felt as though David Tennant was an alien or that he was from a different society or civilization. I always felt like he was just a guy. He was just a guy. He didn't seem like he was alien. He didn't seem like he was 900 years old. I didn't get the sense that he had been through 900 years worth of turmoil. It just fell flat for me. But I think Eccleston nailed it really well. But I do really like Smith's manner, his portrayal, physical, and also just that kind of loosey-goosey. You know, it's almost like there's like wires loose in his head, and then you think he's kind of off his rocker, but then he kind of pulls it together, and it just kind of works for me. It fits. I think he's got a good mix of alien and human, and it feels really right to me.
There's a happy-go-lucky quality to Matt Smith, almost as though the burdens and that were placed on Tennant
yes,
have
exactly
been lifted. Like
exactly.
All the Rose drama gone. The Time War, we don't talk about it anymore. And it's like he's been just reborn. And I'm sure a lot of that has to do with, you know, it's a creative change. There's a new guy behind the scenes running the show who doesn't want to bring all that baggage to his version of the show. So it does feel so much lighter. I think Tennant, and the reason I picked Tennant, I find him to be just eminently watchable. The guy just he bleeds charisma, and he could be sitting in a chair reading a phone book, and I could watch him all day long.
I wouldn't.
You would not.
he may be bleeding charisma for you, but if I saw him and he was bleeding, I would just let him bleed.
Oh,
now that's not nice. I'm sure David Tennant would save your life. Or if he couldn't,
might.
he would tell you that he's so sorry. My read on the Tennant character, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, is that he is being written almost as a manic depressive. He's kind of bipolar in that when he is thinking about Rose, and he's thinking about the Time War and all that he's lost, he is just he is just not much fun to be around. He is dark and sad and unpleasant. But then when he comes out of that, and he's got a mission and he's got an objective and he's got something that he's working towards and people to save, he is so just vibrant and excited. And of the three guys, if I needed someone if I was going to follow somebody, if I wanted someone to save my life, if I wanted someone to save my family, I would follow Tennant just because there's just, I don't know, this intangible appeal, this trust that he engenders that I don't get as much from Eccleston and Smith. I am very fond of all three, but Tennant, there's just something about him, and it's the charisma that I just find, I'll use the word attractive. I just feel drawn to that character in a way I was not to the other two. Not so fond of him when he is saddled with the depression. And when we talk about Rose and Rose's story arc, we'll talk about that.
Hey, Tim, I'm actually glad you brought that up. I have a couple things to add to that really quick. Number one, man crush, little sick. Number two, I think that quality that puts you off of the other doctors is the quality that I like. Because I actually like that they felt, to me, both Smith and Eccleston, like they could make choices that maybe would not make you personally happy, but to their alien sensibilities, like it makes sense. Like sometimes we see Smith making choices that just a normal person wouldn't make, like he puts somebody in danger and you're like, what are you doing? And if you keep it in context that he's not a human being, he is a Time Lord, then it makes sense. And I like that there's that off-putting. That to me is kind of what sells the character to me. And that was one thing to me anyway that Tennant lacks. And maybe that's why you like him more than I do. What do you guys think, Kim and Sinan? You guys pick up on any of that, or what is your feeling?
Well, to kind of counter the Matt Smith side of things, I mean, I think what David Tennant and Christopher Eccleston both share is they felt larger than life to me, and it's to kind of speaks to what Tim was saying about watchable. I found them immensely more watchable than I find Matt Smith. I like him as a character, I like him as an actor. I think the awkwardness and the goofiness is fun, and I agree with you completely, Brad. He feels much more like an alien trying to interact with humans, but he's so subdued some of the time and so subtle that it's quite a culture shock from the Tennant era. And I guess for you, Brad, that's a welcome culture shock. For me, for me, and I think for most Doctor Who fans who David Tennant was a very popular Doctor. It's a bit difficult to transition into the Smith era, and I think maybe he's very, from what I'm told, he's very close to kind of the older, the doctors of before, bit more old school, and maybe that's why I don't quite take him, because I've not really got any affection for I've not watched more than a few episodes of the old Doctors, so
yeah, Smith does have in between his frenetic moments, they do play him as a slower character than, a little more. I mean, a little. The storylines seem to be paced a little less manic for him. Tennant was always either standing around looking stylish or running around like a maniac. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate standing around looking stylish, as do many people. But it was his the writing for that version of the Doctor was very much either on or off, on or off, on or off. And he was a much more human Doctor than Smith. Smith really does feel like he's an alien, things like fish sticks and custard, which many people I know have now tried, unfortunately. So they have gotten into that sort of alien goofiness, although I think previous Doctors were much more arch about it than he is. He's just sort of boggled that, normal people don't eat fish sticks and custard, and whereas John Pertwee's Doctor would have looked down his nose at you for not liking fish sticks and custard. Mm-hmm. So I think it's I think it definitely harkens back to that a bit.
I like Matt Smith. I do. But I think his performance peaked in the first 20 minutes of the first episode. I don't think he was ever better than when he was with young Amelia Pond. And clearly the premise of casting him against a young girl was to address the age issue. Because there were so many who felt he was just too young to play the Doctor, so cast him against a young girl to make the age difference more pronounced. But I felt like his rapport with her was stronger than his rapport with anyone else throughout his season. I don't entirely buy the fact that he is so unfamiliar with human customs. For example, when he was with the episode where he was living in the apartment with the couple, sort of the husky guy and the girl.
Yeah.
They were housemates, and he didn't. There were just simple human customs, like the kissing on the cheeks, that as a 900-year-old guy who has had more than his share of experiences with humans, I think it went a little bit too far in him not being familiar with just basic human customs and courtesy. And that's where I felt it just – and that's not so much Matt Smith. Maybe that's more the writing. But I don't – like I said, I haven't quite settled in on him yet. So I'm kind of with you there. But Brad, he's your favorite over Eccleston. I'm so surprised to hear you say that.
It was really tight. It was really, really tight. But I got to say, I don't like it when the Doctor is too human, and I think that. I don't want to downplay Eccleston's performance because I love him. I really do. But I just love that alienness about him. It just really does something for me. It just kind of sells the character to me. So I give him the edge, but it's a very, very, very slight edge. Eccleston is still, always going to have a special place in my heart.
Did someone say too human? Sorry, I have to do that.
Oh, nice.
Wow. Sinan, well done.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
And
50 podcast points to Sinan. Well done.
Yep.
Talk about Rose,
please.
Have we made our way through the Doctors? Can we talk about Rose?
We're ready.
I think we can talk about Rose. I think we're ready.
All right.
We're prepared.
I think, for me, a highlight and probably my favorite moment of any of the 5 series is the end of the 2nd season, Rose's departure. The scene on the beach where the Doctor, we all know the scene I'm talking about. They have established that Rose is going to be trapped in a parallel universe. She can never come back. They will never see each other again, despite what we know ends up happening. And the Doctor and Rose are talking on the beach. Rose is hopelessly in love with the Doctor. The Doctor knows that there are just a few moments left. He almost says, "I love you." The transmission cuts off, and he's alone. He's by himself. And in that moment, you feel what it must be like to go 900 years and constantly be losing the people that you have grown fond of. The people that you have protected, they always leave. They always move on. To me, that is my favorite performance, and to me, the highlight of the Rose character. And she, as sort of the first companion that I followed, that was a very powerful and very difficult moment for me to watch. And I'm easily emotionally moved by things, and that just killed me to see that happen. Were you sad to see Rose go, or were you thrilled to see Rose go? Because there were a lot of people who were just happy to get rid of her. I wonder what your take is on that. Kimberly, your thoughts on Rose?
On the one hand, I was sad to see Rose go, because the idea of the Doctor actually having a relationship with one of his companions, rather than just dragging them around the universe by the ear, is sort of a fan favorite concept, right? That there's something else going on in the TARDIS. But also, I mean, from the cold hard science fiction writer's perspective, she had to go. Right, there was no way to continue her after a certain point. I mean, it made much better storytelling, and I think it made for a much better conclusion to split them like that. And I think it was very well written, and I think that as a fan of the show, it was heart-wrenching to see that. And it was beautifully written, it was beautifully executed. But from the perspective of somebody who is looking at this from a storytelling perspective, it was necessary. It was a necessary cut. You simply could not have maintained a relationship like that and kept the show as it is. Mm-hmm. It would have turned into, the honeymooners in space. So on the one hand, it was heart-wrenching, and on the other hand, I was like, oh, thank God they're not going to try and do that.
Right. You just get a taste of it, and that's all. Yeah. That's all you need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think we'll get onto her in a second, I'm sure, but Martha Jones's character is entire proof of why it would have been a bad idea to bring Rose back.
Martha Jones.
Me too. Before we get onto Martha Jones, I mean, for me, Rose is my favorite companion, and to give it kind of a backstory, which may not come over over to Americans, she's played by Billie Piper, who was a pop star over here. That was how she first came to fame, as a sort of, I think, 17 or 16-year-old pop star who had a few hits, and then her career didn't really take off. And then she came back and did a period drama and got a lot of rave reviews, and then she was brought back into Doctor Who. But there was a lot of cynicism over her acting ability. What I found impressed me so much about Billie Piper is her range across the first two seasons of Doctor Who. She was so convincing as this, and I don't know again if this word isn't going to carry across, but Chav, I guess, kind of sort of lower class urban character. And yet, when say at the end of season 1, when she's consumed by the essence of the TARDIS or whatever, she's the change in her character is very palpable, and it's very well acted. Again, when she's consumed by Cassandra in season 2, again, very well acted. And there's these moments where she actually steals the limelight away from the Doctor in a few episodes, and I think that's I would only say one of the other companions across the 5 seasons have really done that, has really taken the limelight away from the Doctor in an episode. So big ups for Rose.
Brad, what about you? What do you think about Rose?
I really liked Rose. I do have a special affection for Rose. I really liked her in season 1. I don't know what a chav is, Sinan, but I kind of get what you mean about her being kind of like, I hate to say it, but like, kind of a low class, kind of a person who's, not rich, just kind of, well, we all know what that kind of means. So I liked that pairing, and I thought it was really neat. I have to say that I kind of fell out of love with her for most of season 2. It was something happened in the switchover between seasons for me, and it was like she got kind of, I don't know, like weird and kind of muttery, and she kind of got a little bit smarmy. Like, to me, her attitude changed a little bit, and it lost some of the quality of Rose that I liked. It was almost like she was getting too smug being with the Doctor. I don't know whether that was purposely written or whether that was just a shift in the way she was portraying Rose, but I didn't really care for her during that stretch. And then she redeemed herself at the end of season 2. I really, like you guys said, I mean, it was a great scene. It was a great arc. I mean, it was just a really powerful moment. I mean, I think my wife and I were both just like, oh my God, how can we be watching this? This is so painful. But again, it was totally necessary, and there was no way it could have continued. I mean, it would have just been stretching the series to the point of disbelief. I mean, it would have snapped any suspension of disbelief to keep having Rose around and to continue that arc. And so instead of, rather than that, that senseless continuation, I think what we got, this poignant parting, was something that I think everybody really appreciated, even though we did need the Kleenex for it. So I do like Rose quite a bit.
And then came Martha Jones. I think I heard somebody use the word hate.
That would be me.
Kimberly, would you like to talk about Martha Jones?
I shouldn't hate Martha Jones, because I have been Martha Jones. I have been the, young woman attracted to a powerful personality that is never going to return that affection. And that's probably part of the reason that I hate her so much, is because I have been there and seeing that again and just wanting to smack her upside the head and say, snap out of it, was, that was they wrote her as a sort of a very real character that way. But and I liked her much better later on when she was working for Unit and much more a personality of her own rather than such a puppy, if that makes any sense. She sort of followed him around with big eyes the entire time she was with the Doctor, and I think that, and again, I think that they did a good job when she finally left, and it was it was clear that it was a decision that she was making, and it wasn't like the Doctor's dumping her at an airport like he did with Sarah Jane. So I can appreciate her, but I do not like her at all.
She came across to me as Rose Light. That was the problem. Especially in the writing for her, and I think it's no disparagement on the actress at all. I think she did a fine job. I think she was just a poorly written character. In terms of how I think in the first two seasons, what was great about Rose's character is that you got to know her family as well, and they became really important, fixtures in some of the plots. They tried to do the same again with Martha, and it just didn't work. It felt very much like trying to shift the same idea into a plot line which just wasn't going to take it. And again, the problem with the Doctor essentially ignoring Martha for the whole season is that the show ignored her a bit as well. She got shuffled off to side sort of things a lot of the time, whereas Rose kind of made herself a part of major plot lines a bit more. So I wasn't, I didn't hate her. Same like Kimberly, but I was quite happy to see her go at the end of season 3.
You guys are cold. You guys are cold. I liked Martha Jones quite a bit, and
hang on, you said you're going to leave David Tennant to die, and you're saying we're cold.
Yeah, totally, exactly. No, I mean seriously, I think Kimberly, you had a really good point. I think that she was really well written because I have known plenty of people who have been hopelessly in love with somebody else and just followed them around and made really stupid decisions and let them walk all over them, and that's just how people are sometimes. And so I liked that. But also one of the reasons I liked Martha Jones so much was because she brought out a side of David Tennant that I think he needed, and she brought out his dick side, and he was a dick to her throughout the entire season. He picked her up on the rebound, he treated her badly, he was rarely nice to her, and that was what I liked about it, because we finally got to see this other side of him that we didn't see with Rose at all. And so it sucked to me that he treated her so badly, and I felt really bad for her that she was just like this doormat for him. But I liked the interplay, and I liked that it was kind of a dysfunctional fit. Like it wasn't quite right. Like you knew she wasn't going to stick around. He didn't like her that much, and her lovey-dovey attitude couldn't continue forever. But I thought it was a really normal, believable kind of dynamic that just didn't work, and I've seen plenty of people have that dynamic, so it was really nice to see that echoed in the show. I liked her in general too, but I really like that mechanic the best.
I just didn't like that her entire character was defined by her unrequited love for the Doctor, and really everything that needed to be said about unrequited love was said in the scene between the Doctor and Rose at Bad Wolf Base. So to me, we were just we were wasting our time with Martha. We weren't learning anything new about the Doctor, and her character was not interesting enough on its own. And I would disagree with Sinan. I don't think the actress was particularly good. I don't think the writing was good. I don't think she was good. She was definitely better when she came back, as you said, Kimberly, later on, but really, really had no use for Martha Jones and actually kind of forgot about her for a time.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Isn't that bad? It's terrible.
Sick burn. That's cold. That's really cold.
Particularly when she was replaced with someone who I think is an outstanding companion, and that was Donna Noble. Brad, I know you're a huge Donna Noble fan.
I love Donna. Donna is by far, by a wide margin, my favorite companion of the Doctor. I thought she just did a fantastic job. I loved everything about her. I thought she was like hilarious. She was a perfect foil for Tennant's nonsense. She really, cracked the whip on him a few times and kind of kept him in line. She was also really human. I mean, she humanized him a little bit by making him see, that some of his decisions were kind of cold and unfeeling, which I think was fine because, he's supposed to be this alien, so I think it was okay that he had those feelings. But she was a good counterbalance to him. I really also liked her the acting. I mean, it was exciting to watch her for me because she was so over the top and loud, and she wasn't afraid to be who she was, and she wasn't like Martha, how she was kind of cowed by the Doctor a little bit, and she wasn't Rose, and she was just kind of who she was, and she knew she wasn't going to end up with the Doctor, and she was along for the ride, and she was loving life, and I just loved like every single thing about Donna Noble. I mean, every time she was on screen, that was my favorite moment. I loved her so much.
Kind of two sides to that. I mean, the first thing is, again, this is kind of a sort of unique thing of being over here rather than in America, but the actress who played her, Catherine Tate, she has her own sketch show here in the BBC. And a lot of her characters are very Donna-like, very sort of loud, abrupt, rude, kind of generally larger-than-life characters. And the worry watching her in season 4 was that she's playing the same characters in the sketch shows. But once I got past that cynicism, I agree. I really, really like. So it's not quite as good as Rose for me. But what I really appreciated about her character is that, and it's established in the first episode of season 4 when she kind of invites herself onto the TARDIS, and the Doctor says, "I'm just really looking for a mate." And she goes, "You want me to mate with you?" And he goes, no, "I'm not going to do that, Sunshine." And it's just this immediate establishment that there's not going to be any romantic involvement between either of them, and it just makes for a much more interesting dynamic between the two. It's great to not have love as an agenda for one season.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
They did a good job with her too in rolling her family in. Which was one of the things somebody mentioned early on about Rose's story arc, is that, and one of the things in particular I love about Doctor Who is at the close of a season, you can go back and look through the previous episodes and go and follow the map. Say, okay, this ties in here. We saw this guy in this episode. We saw this happen here. And it's just like this giant, like the final episode is this massive payout that every fan is begging for, and usually with something produced here in the US, you get something like Lost, where there's supposed to be this massive payoff and they just bollocks the whole thing like you wouldn't believe. But so at the end of every season, there's just this, it's like they roll out this map, and you can suddenly see how all of these pieces that you've seen throughout the entire season come together into the final episode or final 2 episodes. They did a great job with the Bad Wolf. They did, just when you were forgetting about the Bad Wolf or writing it off as a red herring storyline, they would bring it back and hit you in the face with it. And they did the same thing with Donna Noble's storyline, which was just fabulous. With her dad keeps popping up, and I had completely forgotten that her father pops up in the Rose storylines as one of the street vendors in the Christmas Day episode. So it's just, all of a sudden you're just like, dude.
Donna's burnout, where she becomes the Dr. Donna, and she really becomes, I got the sense that she finally becomes the person that she has dreamt of being.
Yeah.
And
totally.
And it's so, she's so just overjoyed, and it's so wonderful to see her that way. And it just lends this tremendous tragedy when you get a sense that she's not, obviously she's not going to be able to maintain this, but you don't predict, at least I didn't, how that was going to turn out. This awful tragedy that she's going to forget everything that happened with her and the Doctor, and it's just profoundly sad.
definitely. Like, you said the ending to season 2 is tragic. I found this ending to season 4 much more tragic. That scene where she basically can't even remember the Doctor at the end of season 4, and you can see in his face that he just wants something, a glimmer in it, and it that is tragic. Like, we don't, it just plays on the whole thing of being forgotten and after we die, and and then of course the Doctor is about to regenerate. So I thought it was a really powerful ending, season 4.
It was, and she did a masterful job of taking her character back to where she started.
Yeah.
I mean, she started out as really obnoxious. The first couple times, when we first see her in the wedding dress episode, the one-off, you're just like, oh my God, how can a human being like this even function in society without somebody hitting her with a baseball bat? And by the, after they take all those memories away, suddenly the character development becomes clear. When she sees the Doctor and, basically she's just a total bitch. All of a sudden you realize just what they've done with that character over the arc of the of her story. And then all of a sudden, I mean, that's almost an even greater tragedy, is that, oh my God, she's gone back to being who she was.
Yeah.
This petty-minded small person that that she started out as.
So I guess one more major companion. I do want to talk about Captain Jack in a bit, but Amy Pond, Amelia Pond. Anybody have any strong feelings, pro or against?
Con against. Boring. Hate Amy Pond. So boring. It was a real shame that they didn't keep her a child, although I know that would have been kind of weird to have her be like the child companion. But I do agree with you, Tim, that the interplay between Matt Smith and the child Amy Pond was great. I loved it. It was just so precious and charming and wonderful. And then Amy Pond as an adult is just leaves me absolutely cold. I do not see what she brings to the show. She's flat. She's dull. I think she's kind of obnoxious. She's just kind of I just don't like her. I don't particularly care for the way that she interacts with Matt Smith. I don't think that her performance is very special. She doesn't have any high points for me. She's just this giant, flat, boring, just dead zone in the show for me, and I just really don't care for her at all. And in fact, even though I don't really care for Rory, her robo boyfriend on the show, I actually like him more than her. And it would have been fine with me if it was like Rory and not Amy, because I just don't like Amy. It's not that I hate her, but she just adds nothing for me. And I really wish they would get rid of her and get somebody who is more interesting to play off of Matt Smith. I just don't care for her even a bit.
See, I don't care for her in a staring at her being stylish sort of sense like I do with David Tennant, but I love her voice. I love her accent. I could listen to that voice read the phone book for an hour and, just be enthralled by it. But I do agree. I think she's a bit overbearing in a way that Donna was able to pull off, but that she can't. And what I really would like to see is just maybe a few bromance episodes with the Doctor and Rory, because there's a lot of material there to be mined, I think, between Rory and the Doctor. But I think Amy's screwing it up.
Yes, finally somebody agrees with me. Thank God. Thank you.
Do you want someone else to agree with you?
Yes, please. More the merrier. Absolutely.
I mean, when I was watching the new season, I was paying attention to my Twitter feed, and everyone's going, "Oh, she's really beautiful. She's fantastic." All these kind of superficial things, and I'm with you guys. She's dead weight, a burden really to the Doctor in a lot of season 5, and just not interesting. Sorry.
Thank you.
I have to say, it's one of the delightful things about getting shows from the UK over here in the US is that the UK programmers allow for a much broader physical range in actors. Yeah. I mean, you turn on the stuff here in the US and it's like carbon copies, tall, blonde,
Everybody's way too skinny in America. It's unhealthy skinny.
And even the characters that aren't, which they either go towards the the parody they're either grossly overweight or like in the Drew Carey show we had a lot of physically interesting people, but much more caricatured as opposed to let's say Covert Affairs or even any of the what they call the Big Blue Sky shows over here, Burn Notice, all those. They're all the same. It's it's like you flipped through a book and said, okay, let's see, Model A or Model B. Well, Model B is on discount this week, so we'll they look the same. We'll just pick one of the two. So it's one of the and Amy fits more into that beautiful people mold than I think any of the rest of the Doctor's companions since Joe, which I guess I'm the only one here who knows who Joe is. But she's the first one that fits sort of an archetypical quote beauty mold, and I think it's a bit off-putting coming from a British show. It's a little bit out of place.
There was actually a kind of a big furore. Well, not big. It was the Daily Mail, which is our Fox News newspaper, basically. And that first episode where she's in I think it's a nurse's uniform or whatever.
Yeah, the policeman's uniform.
Policeman's uniform. And there was this big thing: you can't sexualize the companion in Doctor Who. You can't do that. And whilst I think it was an overreaction, I think it does go to what Kimberly's saying. It doesn't fit Doctor Who. It doesn't quite, what I liked about Rose as a character is, even though she, they to some extent kind of sexualized, but it was much more subtle, and it was a bit too much with Amy's character, I think.
Yeah, when I first heard people talking about Amy, that was kind of the first thing everybody said was, "Oh, she's so hot, she's so hot, she's so cute," And it's like I didn't see the value of saying that in regard to Doctor Who, because I mean I don't know about you guys, but I certainly don't watch Doctor Who for like the love angle at all. And,
yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean not at all. And I really have. I mean, one of the things that I've really liked about Doctor Who, and by extension, almost every single other UK show that we've watched since then, and we watched a lot since then, is that the UK shows really have, like you guys said, a wide variety of physical appearances. I mean, people are black, they're heavier, some of the women obviously are not size zeros, some of the guys are not bodybuilders. I mean, it's totally refreshing to see people on these shows who look like actual people. I mean, they got bad teeth, they've got a pimple here and there or whatever, their hair isn't combed perfectly, and they're not ugly. I mean, they're not like a series of Quasimodos or anything, but they look like normal people that you actually might see on the street or something, and I really like that. So I that's one thing I really appreciate, and I hope that they don't fall into that. I mean, I don't know if I should say it's an Americanization, but I mean, I kind of see it as an Americanization where people have to be beautiful and skinny, and it's totally unrealistic, and I hope that quality stops where it is now.
I remember seeing a behind-the-scenes thing for 24, and how one of the producers was very proud that his characters were not conventionally pretty, and I just laughed. So yeah, you think that your characters aren't conventionally attractive? Wow. Okay.
Well, it is. I mean, the Hollywood over here. I mean, when they mentioned that Russell T Davies was coming over here to do a Torchwood spinoff, I mean, that's the worst possible thing, in my opinion, that could happen to a BBC property, is it for it to come here to the U.S. and get produced by an American production house. Mm. I mean, you can if you watch a lot of TV, which for good or for evil I do, you can start to identify the production houses, and you can see who has what look, and you can kind of tell which ones are produced in the U.S. and which ones that they're doing up in Canada, and you can tell when they've actually like gone to another country for filming versus going out into the desert in Texas and pretending that they're in Saudi Arabia or whatever. So it's, the I think that there's, that it is a distinctively UK quality, that the actors and actresses that are chosen are much more, they fit a much more realistic mold for with all of their flaws, as it were.
It's not a very deep pool over here. That's all I'll say.
It looks way more varied than what we get over here. I'll give you that, though. I mean, it definitely seems better. Seems different.
Yeah.
Well, Kimberly, I'm glad you mentioned Amy Pond's voice. I spent some time in Scotland, so a Scottish accent is extremely important to me. And if there was a TV show where Amy Pond and David Tennant sat in a room reading phone books to each other. I am DVRing that show. Brad and I went back and forth on Amy Pond on Twitter a bit, and I think I have retracted a bit of my love for her. I think what I enjoy about that character is not so much her, but how that character was so intertwined in the plot arc of this season. And that a companion hadn't really been used that way before. That her backstory played such a crucial role in how the events of season 5 played out, and I think that to me was really interesting because it was a change from how companions had been used previously. But the more I think about her character, I think you all have raised very good points about her. Her abrasiveness and in some ways her unlikability. So I will retract my undying love for her, and I will call it simply acceptance.
I'll take that as a
from
win.
Undying love to acceptance, that's a pretty long fall.
It is it's quite a drop. But speaking of impossibly attractive people, let's talk about Captain Jack, because this is a guy who, to me, he seemed, I guess I would describe him as the ultimate Boy Scout, almost Superman-ish in his but kind of a goofy Superman. And he's really, Doctor Who has had many, many recurring characters, but he has come back probably more than any. And I always enjoy his appearances because he's just so happy. And I haven't seen Torchwood. I haven't seen any of that, so I don't know if that character changes at all, or if his personality switches at all in that show. But here's a guy who just wants to show up, just wants to get it on all the time with whomever's in the room. And I just enjoy that energy that he brings. What do you guys think of Captain Jack? Sinan, what are your thoughts?
I like him for a lot of the reasons you say. I mean, the thing is, I felt a little bit like because Russell T Davies is very publicly gay, and tries to bring a lot of that into Doctor Who, and it feels a little bit like, even though Captain Jack is, I guess, essentially polysexual.
If it has a heartbeat, it's fair game.
Right. It does feel. He does feel a little bit like the mouthpiece sometimes for gay themes. That's not a problem. I sometimes feel like Doctor Who does a good enough job of covering those side of things without him. Sometimes, but whatever. I don't really have a problem with it. Maybe I'm getting a bit more of Russell T Davies than I am at Captain Jack, but that's a whole separate thing, really.
He's very much the Harvey Mudd of Doctor Who.
Harvey Mudd, Harry Mudd.
Harry Mudd. Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm actually I slipped gears there, and I was actually referencing. They originally were going to call the character Harvey Mudd, but it sounded too much like Harvey Wallbanger, so they switched it to Harry Mudd, which will show you just how deep that G is engraved in my forehead. He's not as nefarious as he is supposed to be. There's all kinds of references to him having some sort of illicit past in there somewhere, particularly when they brought on, I'm blanking on his name, the guy who played Spike in Buffy.
James Marsden.
James Marsden, right, as his former lover / partner. And I think there's so much more they could do with that, but they started with that in the first season of Doctor Who, and then they sort of lost it, and he went like super psycho Boy Scout. And he's totally got a man crush on the Doctor, which I just think is hysterical. Because in some ways he is very much just like Martha Jones in that way, in that he's sort of, every time he sees the Doctor, he just goes all weak-kneed and googly-eyed, and we sort of lose the sense of Captain Jack. I like him much better when he's apart from the Doctor than when they're working together, as it were. I think he's a much stronger character when he's not, making eyes at whichever doctor happens to be playing the role at that time. So, but they did. I mean, and the actor, I think, is also gay. And he does a very good job of that over the top, sort of queen attitude of, just everything about him is flamboyant and over the top. And I mean, he even overshadows David Tennant at points with, just being this larger than life individual.
The actors are not too far from that, actually.
It's very weird, actually, to contrast him as Captain Jack and then look at he was doing that reality show with Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yes.
And to sort of contrast those two, because there is kind of a contrast. When he's not moving, he's not as big as the roles that he plays, which is always an interesting thing to see. Is that I think I would be much more interested in not knowing John Barrowman the person than I would be in knowing Captain Jack the character.
Right.
Which doesn't happen often. Usually I would just rather know the character and the actor, while they may be a worthwhile human being. I'm not as interested in the actor as I am in the character they play. But with Captain Jack, it's a little different, I think.
Interesting. I'm really a big Captain Jack fan. I love Captain Jack. I loved every time he came on the Doctor Who show. And I was thrilled beyond belief when I found out that Torchwood was the spinoff that it was. I had heard of Torchwood, but that was before I knew the connection to Doctor Who, so it never really clicked in my head. And when I saw the first episode of Torchwood and it was going to be all about Captain Jack, I was like, "Oh my God, this is going to be awesome!" I love him so much, and I do agree that they kind of played him off. They played off his Boy Scout side, but I think that was okay. I mean, I think he's kind of jumping back and forth. They definitely didn't spend a lot of time on his checkered past, But as you get further on in the Torchwood series, there's a few moments that are pretty devastating that really illustrate, how. I don't know that he's a bad person, but I think that he can make choices that maybe other people wouldn't make, and he's not afraid to make those choices. And so it makes him seem like kind of a bad guy sometimes, but I don't think that he is. Especially, and I don't want to get too far off track here, but in the Children of Earth miniseries, I mean, that was just gut-wrenching.
That was brutal.
It was, oh my God, it gave me
brutal.
nightmares. I think I even cried, and it was just so bad. And that to me was like one of the ultimate Captain Jack moments where you see the other side of Captain Jack. He doesn't want to screw anything at that moment. He's not happy-go-lucky. He is about being there and making the choice that nobody else wants to make. And that to me is going to be forever etched in my mind as like one of the highest, most intense moments of like science fiction that I've ever seen. So I really liked that a lot, that they brought him there. And in general, I do like his gee, I want to have sex with everything side too. So I enjoy him all the way around. I think he's just a great character.
I do. I'm wondering how and I'm still mildly off topic here. I am really wondering how they're going to bring. I mean, they're reportedly working on a new Torchwood, and I'm really curious as to see how they write up his character in the wake of pretty much having the entire Torchwood team decimated again. Because I think this is like the third time it's happened in his. At
least third time. Those people die off like flies. So yeah,
every time we turn around, he's the only one left.
Exactly.
And I do appreciate the cleverness of some of the things that they've done with his immortality. The burying him underground and letting him chew his way out over the course of X hundred years. Was a particularly Highlander touch, I think.
I really like, not to get into spoiler territory, but when they finally reveal what Captain Jack's ultimate fate is, that was pretty mind-blowing to me. I thought that was really, really cool. And I
think it could have been revealed better. It felt very clumsy.
Yeah.
But it was another one of those gimme moments, where all of a sudden you're looking at the roadmap of the story and you're like, yes! It all makes sense!
Very, very.
Do you think Captain Jack will come back, should come back into a Matt Smith episode? How do you think they would behave
I don't
together.
think so. I think he was part of the previous world. The shift in tone to me seems to be so great that I think we're kind of just putting all that old stuff on pause. At first, I was kind of wondering if they were going to bring back anybody, but gut feeling, no, I don't think they will.
Yeah, I don't think Matt Smith's Doctor Who and Captain Jack would get along at all. Just the chemistry of the two different characters. I really think that if you put them in the same room together, you would have oil and water, and I think writing your way out of that would be troublesome, especially with Amy Pond being oversexed as she is, right?
Just another guy for her to flirt with. I get a sense that Matt Smith, that his Doctor would just have no patience for Captain Jack's shenanigans.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we've talked a bit about the transition into the Matt Smith era, and I guess we should take a few minutes and talk about the Russell T Davies era versus the Stephen Moffat era. And I wonder, do you have any initial thoughts on that? I certainly have trouble with how the Russell T Davies era ended, but I'm curious what your thoughts are first. Are we headed in the right direction? Do we like the changes that Moffat has brought to the table? And looking to pre-Russell T Davies, were you satisfied? Kimberly, this is a good question for you. Were you satisfied with the major changes that Russell T Davies brought to the Doctor Who franchise?
When it changed over, when the last couple of Doctors before the Great Hiatus, Sylvester McCoy, and basically from Doctor 5 on up, I think they were really having trouble. I think they really wanted to do a reboot, or they really needed to do a reboot, but at that point in time, you didn't reboot something like Doctor Who. I mean, it had a 30-year history already, and you didn't mess with something that was that popular. I think probably all of Britain might have risen up in arms and stormed BBC One had they done then what they did now. And I think Russell T Davies did a lot of the novelizations. So he had a lot, and I know he was responsible for. I used to have all the novels at one point, all the novellas, and he was very well steeped in the original material, and I think he did an excellent job changing it up, and coming at it with a fresh look. I think he and Moffat are equally complicated with their story arcs, but Moffat is much more light-footed than Davies is. I feel like, with Davies, I feel that it's, at the end of the season, it's rolled out and there's a roadmap and you can see how everything's been plotted out. And Moffat does the same thing, but it's a much lighter hand, and his clues are a lot subtler, and his the things that are going to come back and bite you 3, 4, 5, 6 episodes later are not as obvious as they would have been with Davies. So I think it's a very different mindset, but at the same time, I think there's still this sort of complicated chess game that both producers are very well accustomed to running.
Before I complain about Russell T Davies, let me give Brad or Sinan a chance to jump in. What do you think of the transition to Moffat? What do you think one approach works better than the other? Brad, I'll start with you.
I don't really know enough about each particular producer to be able to speak intelligently, but I can say that I did notice a pretty distinct shift when the changeover occurred. I think it's fine. I mean, to me, it seems like a very, very clear shift. And, new doctor, new direction. I was okay with that, but I will say that I'm a little bit concerned about the quality. I was really kind of dissatisfied with season 5 in a lot of ways. I liked Matt Smith very much, and I liked the new direction, the new tone. But some of the writing just did not hold up for me. So I'm hoping that that's going to change. I really don't want to see more stylized yet less kind of substantial and more plot-holy episodes. I felt like that was a real problem for me. Sinan, what did you think?
It's interesting because in the Russell T Davies era, my favorite episodes are the ones that Stephen Moffat wrote. For example, from season 2, he wrote the one with Madame de Pompadour on with the fireplaces going back into her past, and I thought it was a brilliant episode because it was so character driven and it was such an interesting concept. It really played heavily on the fact that the Doctor does travel across time and he can do it at any point. But I realise that there's more to spaceship at Voltaire, but I feel like a lot of the time in the Russell T Davies era, you don't. He's wary of, and I guess this goes back to the rules of Doctor Who or whatever. But he's wary of necessarily messing around too much with a story that revolves around time travel. Again, the other episode Blink, which Stephen Moffat wrote in season 3 with the statues and the people getting taken into the past and or into the future, whatever. And I thought it was fascinating. It made for these really interesting stories, which you don't get that in the other episodes of the season. And so I was really anticipating season 5. I thought you're going to get a lot more sort of interesting sci-fi ideas, which are still very character driven. It just hasn't delivered. And I don't know whether that's because maybe Moffat's a bit better at these one-off episodes rather than the whole series. I don't know. I'm hoping it's just the transition is a culture shock, but it's not been quite there for me.
I completely agree with you, Sinan. The Moffat episodes, Blink in particular, which I think many fans will cite as their pick for the best of the Russell T Davies era. Blink is just a brilliant entertainment. I was really surprised that Moffat brought back so many things from his shows, from his previous shows. The fact that we brought the Weeping Angels back, the fact that we brought River Song back, and I don't know, it's the same thing that Star Trek did with the Borg. They were amazing once, and then they come back again and again and again, and it almost devalues the impact of their original appearance. And I felt like the same thing happened with the Weeping Angels, and I don't know about you, but I'm completely sick of River Song at this point. and I really spoilers. It's like, enough, please, God. So I was really surprised that Moffat, who by all accounts, has dreamt of having this job his entire life to run Doctor Who, and has had his entire life to think of 13 episodes, that he brought back so many recycled ideas, and that really, other than that first episode, which was just genius, that there wasn't really anything special about that 5th season.
But he's not telling the stories now, right? I mean, the difference between being a writer or even a director is massively different than being a producer.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, when you're the producer, it's really a hands-off gig. You just don't have time to get in and tell this. Even if you sketch out the plot, even if you outline every single episode, it's still not going to be you writing the episodes.
Yeah.
From what I understand, though, Russell Davies was incredibly hands-on as a producer. He really didn't, even when someone else was writing an episode, he kind of wanted to get involved in it. And maybe that's why a lot of it does feel very consistent. The one thing about Stephen Moffat's season 5, it's just that disappointments me. There's been a couple of really very bad episodes, in terms of standing out across the whole 5 seasons as the worst episodes. Like the one with World War II and the Daleks and Churchill was just an abomination of writing. Contrived, rushed, implausible, just and uninteresting. And it's like you contrast it against the World War II episode. I would say World War II, World War I, in season 1, which is very dark and really plays on some interesting themes, and actually speaks about what was going on at the time, for people in the war. Whereas this one's just this stupid sci-fi nonsense which doesn't have a place. It's just silly, and there are a couple of episodes like that in season 5, and that's what's really disappointing to me about it.
It almost feels like they're educating Amy Pond in sci-fi.
Yes.
I mean, some of these things are so retrodden. Some of these stories and memes that have popped up in season 5. It really feels like the education of Amy Pond, in some ways.
Except that Amy Pond is not likable, so it's kind of a wash.
Let me complain for a bit about the end of the Russell T Davies era, since we're getting into some negativity here, and let me just pile on. I hated that Rose came back, and the reasons are obvious. You have that beautiful, wonderful, magnificent, Brad, as you said, parting of the ways, and I think that was the name of the episode. And then for her to come back completely devalues the impact of that moment, because it should have been impossible. By the very rules established in the episode, it should have been impossible. And I realize it's television and it's fiction and you can just make up whatever you want at any time, but it really does kind of ruin that moment from season 2, and then to give her a cloned Dr. Boy toy.
Yeah.
What? I guess, and it seemed like Russell T Davies forgot how to write for Rose. Billie Piper forgot how to play Rose. None of it felt right, and it just what was it? Was there were the fans crying out for the Doctor and Rose to get
fan
together?
Service.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, totally. It was the typical, to bring in video games for a second, it was like the typical classic RPG ending that every RPG superfan wants. You want to bring every single person back. You want to have closure on every single character that's ever been introduced. You want to have everybody have the happiest ending possible, and that's the way the RPGs are supposed to end. So translate that into this, this show, and that's exactly what it was. I mean, I totally agree that bringing Rose back was a mistake. It does cheapen like that really super poignant parting, which was a really memorable moment, and instead it becomes kind of a joke because, like you said, the show just broke its own rules. And granted, this is fiction, of course, but any good writer knows that once you establish those rules, you cannot break them. Otherwise, you risk losing the trust of your audience. I mean, any writer worth their salt knows this. You only have one chance to get these rules set up, and you cannot change them later on. Otherwise, it's all going to go in the trash. You have a really high risk of throwing it in the trash. And that, to me, was just like, it was just improbable. I totally agree with you that they shouldn't have gone that route. I mean, I appreciated that some of the loose ends got tied up for sure, but it didn't need to be that thorough. It didn't need to go on for that long, and not everybody needed to come back that did come back.
Did the fans really want it? I mean, I got the impression that things like Martha ending up with Mickey. To me, it felt like Russell T Davies masturbating to his own ideas from the end of the last show. It's just ridiculous, and it couldn't have ended quicker for me. Awful.
Yeah, the Martha Mickey thing was just a travesty. That was bad. That was
oh my
really
God.
bad.
Mickey was just a travesty for the longest time. But
Yes.
it does feel like it was, very much a clear signal, right? We are going to close out all of these characters. We do not ever want to hear from them again. They are done.
Exactly.
Everybody has their happy ending. We have dit and this and this and this. And, Donna gets married and Martha and Mickey end up together and Donna gets her boy toy. And just click, 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 click. And it goes through and they close out everything, really. And it's like they just put up a big wall, really. It's almost like it's just to shut everybody up. We are moving on.
It's almost like a reboot of the
we'll never hear
reboot.
from these people again. Yeah, it's like another reboot, right?
Yeah.
And then Moffat's rebooted it again, really, with this whole universe coming from the mind of Amy Pond bit at the end.
Mm-hmm. Which was awful.
I don't know, though. If I could have dropped a TARDIS into the middle of my wedding, that certainly would have been something to watch.
That was a pretty cool moment. I like that quite a bit, actually, when she summons the Doctor back into existence. I enjoyed that. I cheered a little bit. Just a little bit.
I wanted to vomit. God, that was awful. I'm sorry to keep, I guess just, piling on again, but I just have to say, the closure to season 5 was fucking trash. Like, please excuse my language. I hated the ending to season 5. I thought it was complete garbage, and I really am hoping that they don't repeat that. Everything about it was bad. All of it. The unexplained crack, Rory coming back, this was all drawn from Amy's memory, the stupid Pandorica that Doctor Who got out of, which he really had no way to get out of. All those aliens coming together to hold hands and cheer when the Doctor gets locked up. It was all a steaming pile of crap. I hated it. And it was so subpar compared to some of the high points of the series. It really stuck in my craw. I'm sorry. I need to just say that.
I have to say, all of the bad guys coming together to lock up the Doctor, it was like flashbacks to the late 70s and the Justice League and the Legion of Doom. We shall get all the bad guys together in our own little Doom castle. And it was like, I'm like, you're freaking kidding me.
To not get too negative on season 5, I don't know if it's got to America yet, but the Christmas special.
I love the Christmas special.
Was good. No, that was good. That was good.
I actually avoided my parents the entire day so I could watch the Christmas special. I made my travel plans around the Christmas special this year. I come from a house that is not exactly Doctor Who friendly, so
I can relate. Yeah, when I heard the Christmas special was going to be a retelling of A Christmas Carol, how many retellings of that do we really need? But I thought the spin was just fantastic, just top notch. So probably my second favorite Matt Smith episode. So here we are. We are probably at a point where we should start thinking about wrapping this up. So let me first ask each of you, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would like to mention? Any points you'd like to make, questions you'd like to pose to the group, songs you'd like to sing? Now is the time.
I've got a couple if nobody else does, but I'll let other people go first.
Well, I was going to bring up River Song, but I think we've already touched on her. I find it. She's another one of those characters that works much better without the Doctor in scene than she does with him in scene. Whenever there's an interaction between her and the Doctor, it's all nods and winks and I know more than you do, and just really kind of annoying after a while. But when they write her up, with the exception of the pseudo James Bond being blown out the airlock bit at the beginning of the Weeping Angels episode, she's a much more interesting character, and I have to wonder if there's spin-off material there, or if she's being designed for spin-off material. The Adventures of River Song, miniseries or something in the future.
I just love the idea. I loved just having a little. Let me not. I was going to say something I absolutely should not have said. I River Song worked in a very small dose in I think it was it took place in the library.
The library,
in the David Tennant episode, and
Mm-hmm.
I loved the concept of she is the companion of maybe the 19th Doctor or the 21st Doctor, that she is from so far into the future and knows so much, because she says to the Doctor, "Oh, you look so young." She's just astounded by how young he looks. And I thought that's a great concept. But now that she is fully integrated and she shows up every 3 episodes having adventures, I just hate the idea that it seems like they're going to resolve the story of River's Song with Matt Smith. And maybe that's the wrong impression to get, but I liked it much more when she was just off in a distant future with a Doctor that we would probably never see. And I think she just worked better in that capacity.
I agree. I totally agree. I actually don't care for her that much at all, and I think she shows up far too often, and they're just overusing her. I mean, I think a one-off was really interesting, but I'm tired of her. I don't like her very much, and I don't think she has very much chemistry with Matt Smith at all. And in fact, I mean, that's kind of one of my big problems with season 5 is I don't think the characters together have very good chemistry. I mean, I think Matt Smith is great, but I don't think he fits with Amy Pond. I don't think he fits with River Song, and it's just this weird machine they've put together. In the previous seasons, I mean, I loved having Rose's mom and Mickey and everybody else get together. Like, they all kind of like got along in this weird dysfunctional way, and it was always a pleasure to me anyway to see them together. And when Donna's grandpa showed up, I loved Donna's grandpa, and it was always really fun to have that going. But in this group, I mean, it's just weird, and River Song just compounds the whole thing. I just dislike.
I don't know who mentioned it, but there is chemistry between Matt Smith and Rory's
Yes. That's actually the one thing that kind of works for me. Yeah.
And they won't kill off Amy Pond, so we're gonna have to drop her on an asteroid somewhere for a while.
Please,
and have like
ASAP.
a series of Amy Pond's been abducted type episodes, or she's unfortunately clever though with getting herself out of trouble. They'll have to knock her unconscious and lock her in a trunk somewhere. But I mean, in the what now 40-year history of this show, they've only killed off, I think, one character. And even the actor who played that character was really happy they killed him off.
Well, there's always a chance. We can hope.
I have a very serious question. Which of the Doctors is the best dressed?
Ooh. David Tennant, come on. Blue suit.
Sneakers and a trench coat.
You're not into the tweed look for Matt Smith?
I know too many people who have the tweed look as part of their natural wardrobe for that to be as exotic as they seem to think it is. I know too many professors.
Although credit Eccleston for wearing an outfit that is such a departure from what came before. I don't know if you can credit Eccleston for that, but he made it work. He made it work.
But I think
I do wish they kept the fez.
Yeah.
I think everybody wishes the fez would make a reappearance.
The leather jacket and the fez would have been a great combination. I think the funny thing about Eccleston is that the whole reason he left off one season is he didn't want to be remembered for that character, but his look is probably the most distinctive of all the Doctors, because it's so different from any of the others.
Definitely. Brad, I noticed you haven't jumped in on the apparel question.
I was trying to think of something substantive to say, and I just didn't have anything, so I'm just going to let it go.
Yeah.
I do like the fez, though. I must admit, I do hope the fez comes back.
And does anyone want to say it? Fezes
are cool.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Brad, you mentioned you had a couple things you wanted to
I do have just a couple quick questions, and I'm hoping that the Brain Trust here together can kind of help me solve these. The first one, when the Silurians appeared in Season 5, I was just boggled beyond all belief that, none of the Silurians had, like, reptilian eyes. I mean, that seemed like the biggest, like, WTF. They're dinosaurs, they're reptiles. Why do they have human eyes? And number two, why do the females have breasts? There's no record of any reptile in history nursing their young. And it was like the women Silurians had breasts. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, one issue I have in any show in general is that the aliens are never alien enough. And I realize that from a writer's perspective, you can't have them be totally alien because then the audience gets turned off and they can't identify yada, yada, yada. But at the same time, I mean, come on. That was kind of a gimme. But the more serious question to me, and Kimberly, maybe you can add to this, was the whole bad wolf concept. I know that they really played on it pretty heavily with Rose, but to be honest, I just never really got like the aha moment. I mean, maybe that's me. Maybe I'm just not quick enough or clever enough, or maybe I didn't put enough pieces together. But I always kept waiting for the bad wolf thing to really click, and it just never really did for me. I mean, did you guys really feel like that was done to your satisfaction, or like it was answered in a way that made you happy?
When the Rose arc ended, I was satisfied with that as a conclusion. And then when it popped up again with Donna, it was an unusual, particularly for serialized television, it was a very unusual twist to throw in there, because they really gave us the impression with Bad Wolf Bay that was done. Oh yes, okay, we've had 2 seasons dropping all these hits, and boom, here's the event that's supposed to happen. And then it pops up that, with Donna in the episode where there's a thing on her back, where all of a sudden it sort of comes bubbling up from under the storyline again. And it's just like, oh shit. Which it's just an unusual thing to see happen in television from a story perspective. You don't usually have concepts and storylines that last that long, that will show up through several different story arcs. I think the aha moment for me was when it popped back up with Donna, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, this hasn't gone away. And what we thought was the end of it, was not actually the end of it, and it became a much bigger thing.
But what was it? I mean, I don't have a concept in my head. Like you, I thought it ended with Rose, and that was okay. A little bit unresolved, but still, I had a handle on it. But then it pops up again, and I'm like, this doesn't fit with anything else. I don't get it. I mean, I guess I'm just slow or something, but it just didn't fit for me.
What I quite liked about it, because I didn't really appreciate it returning actually in series 2 and series 4. I get what you're saying, Kimberly. I mean, I agree. I like story arcs and things lasting across seasons and maybe even whole series. But I like the kind of paradox actually about it in season 1. I like it as a sci-fi concept of, well, where did this start? Was it Rose seeing the bad wolves, or her coming up with this thing? When she's got the essence of the TARDIS in her, and the fact that it didn't really make sense, I quite liked, because it gave it kind of mystery, and I think that's always a good side of sci-fi, when it's just a little bit intangible, a little bit difficult to get your head around. It's kind of like the midichlorians in Star Wars. You don't need to explain everything. Really.
No, I agree with you, Brad. I remember watching. I was sitting down at lunch with my old boss, who is also a Doctor Who fan, and we were just talking. And he looked at me and he said, "All right, we both just watched the finale of this episode. Can you explain Bad Wolf?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. Okay, this is what happened." And then I was like, no." No, I can't explain Bad Wolf, and I don't think I really can, particularly when it came back. I felt like when it came back later that it was just a random callback. I didn't get a sense that I got a sense that it was more fan service than just than an actual, like, something that had been threaded into the plot. I may not have been paying attention well. I may just be slow. But yeah, it never really. I never had the aha moment. I think you put it very well, Brad.
All right, just checking.
Yeah. I have one question completely out of the blue. I believe that for season 6, for the very first time, Doctor Who is shooting in America.
Ah.
Correct, yes.
So my question for you is, Sanan, are you okay with that?
There's only so many times I can see Cardiff and believe that it's New York. So yes, by all means, stretch your limits, BBC.
When can we expect to see season 6? I haven't even seen a date yet. Does anyone know?
My girlfriend thinks it's very shortly, in a few weeks.
It's in March. I think it hits. I mean, I know that the UK gets it before we do, but not. It used to be we had to wait on our friends in the UK to send us pirated DVDs, which I would never actually do. But they're starting to. BBC America is starting to air them much more closely together. It says spring of 2011. But I remember somewhere seeing that it was supposed to be in March, because there's a bunch of stuff coming back in March.
Well, whatever problems we had with season 5, I think I can speak for all of us when I say I can't wait.
Agreed.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So we have been recording 2 hours. We have doubled our intended show length, and I loved every minute of it. I cannot thank the three of you enough for joining me. Brad, whomever came up with this idea, I think it was you.
It was me.
Congratulations on such a fantastic conversation.
I take full credit. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Uh-huh.
And
you guys helped, though. It was good to have you aboard. I appreciate it.
Once season 6 airs, I hope that we can, Kimberly, Sanan, have both of you back on. We'll take a look at season 6 and perhaps bring in some additional old school Doctor Who enthusiasts to put us whippersnappers in our place. So I hope you'll come back at a future date to talk more Doctor Who.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Fantastic. Well, this is the part of the show where everybody gets a chance to plug their stuff. So if you have a Twitter account, a website, a company, a product, whatever you've got, take the opportunity. You have, I think at last count, we have about 6.5 million listeners, and every one of them just eager to buy your products. So let me start with, let's start with Kimberly Unger. Kimberly, please plug your stuff.
All right. Well, my company Bushigo is producing a episodic mobile game that will be coming out in 2011, hopefully before summer, and we are dropping the prequel novel. So we actually have a proper, full-blown science fiction cyberpunk novel that's been written as a prequel to the game, and that's going to be dropping next week. And we will be posting links to our Twitter page, our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/agilist. So those links will be going up in the next week or so, probably right after GDC.
Fantastic. We will put if we may, we'll put a link in our show notes to that so people can check that out. And then, Kimberly, do you have a Twitter account your own personal Twitter account that you'd like to plug if people want to keep in touch?
Absolutely. My personal Twitter account is Ingenue. ING3NU, because the 3 is silent, you see. And I can also be found on the Agilist Twitter account, which is run by either myself or my other two partners. It's sort of a Russian roulette as to who you'll be speaking to on that account, though.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being with us, Kimberly.
Sure.
Sanan Kuba, plug your stuff, sir.
I will. Thank you very much. Just to say as well, thank you for having me on. It's been a real pleasure. I write about the video games, which I hear you guys like to talk about, and I do that all over the place. But you can find most of it at my blog, which is shoinan.com, OI, N for Norman, A, N for Norman. And I'm actually part this year of the One a Day project, where it's all in the name of charity trying to write a blog post a day. So I apologize in advance for all the rubbish I write, but it's all in a good cause. And you can also find me on Twitter at Shoinan, the same name. And I do a podcast. Oh, yeah. BigRedPotion.com. I forgot about it. Yeah, we talk about video games there too.
And if you like gaming podcasts, Big Red Potion, and I mean this quite seriously, I would say this even if you weren't here, one of the best gaming podcasts there is. So if you listen to gaming podcasts, you get the Big Red Potion, no doubt. So Sinan, thank you, as always, so much for being here. And Mr. Brad Gallaway.
It's me. I'm a regular on this show, so I feel kind of bad plugging anything. But hey, I'm on the GameCritics.com podcast. If you guys would like to listen to that, you can find me there. I also am the reviews editor at GameCritics.com, so if you read about games, you can find me there. And if you want to follow me in a little more detail, you can follow my personal blog at Drinking Coffee Cola, all one word. You can find that on Blogspot. And you can follow me on Twitter under my name, Brad Gallaway.
Very good. And
some of us already do.
And Brad, you and I are going to assemble in about 21 and a half hours to record another one of these podcasts, our big 50th episode spectacular. So
can't wait. Cannot wait.
It's the first time we've double dipped over a weekend, and it's going to be something else.
That's what my wife says.
Wait, what? Okay. And I feel silly plugging anything. If you're listening to this podcast, you already know where to get it. GameCritics.com. If you would like to follow me on Twitter, I am at Tim Spaeth. And I do have a blog that I don't update at all at kernelt.com, so you can check that out. I really wouldn't bother, but you could if you want to. So one last time, my thanks to Brad Gallaway, Kimberly Unger, and Sinan Kuba. That's our Doctor Who show, folks. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, good night and bonne chance.
I thought you were going to say that French thing he always says. What does he say?
Allons-y.
Yes. Waiting for that. Oh, disappointed. Okay.
Oh, wait. Okay. Let me. Now
Wait, he can edit that in.
Let me edit that in.
Edit it in.
All right. So, for Brad Gallaway, Kimberly Unger, and Sinan Kuba, I'm Tim Spaeth. Good night, and allons-y!
Much better.
Thank you
Awesome.
for the suggestion. I appreciate it.
Good call. Good call. All right.
Tonight's show is a little different. Tonight's show is about a man who's not really a man. He's a doctor, but he's not really a doctor. Like Dr. Phil, but awesome. Most people in the United States of America have not heard of him. He's just like me in that regard. Who is he? He's the Doctor!
The BBC premiered a show about an alien who traveled through space and time to combat powers of evil.
He was a force for good in an otherwise uncertain universe.
You are correct in your summation of his character, my profane rabbit friend.
Ooh, tell me more.
The show has been running in Britain almost 50 years, with many different actors in the role of the Doctor.
The Doctor doesn't die, he just regenerates.
The crocodile alligator speaks the truth. One thing is consistent though, and this is why the show is so beloved by geeks and nerds. It's all about the triumph of intellect and romance. and romance over brute force and cynicism.
And if there is any hope for any of us in this giant explosion in which we inhabit, then surely that's it. Intellect and romance triumph over brute force and cynicism. Right, Doctor?
Absolutely.